he said no. I told the guys to get somebody, but I don't know if they'll get here. So we're driving from here?
Yeah, I think you put up the.
Okay.
So I think you put up the first slide. Oh, he's got it.
You might want to switch to the first slide.
All right, yeah, he's switching. Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming to the technical track of the Hawaii Cloud Innovation Summit. Hope you guys enjoyed the morning keynotes and lunch. So in this track today, we have a couple presentations that will cover some of the key technologies and capabilities that were actually mentioned earlier in the morning keynotes, right? First is cloud migration and the process that AWS has developed. And the second one is around analytics and data lakes, right? And so these two sessions will be going on. Feel free to kind of move around between work streams if you choose to, or you can spend the whole afternoon here with us. So to start off, we'll start off with the application cloud migration. And this one, again, is about the AWS process that they've developed through the learnings that they've had helping clients migrate to the cloud. And so there's a process and a bunch of tools that they have. And then DataHouse will speak to one of our client examples where we worked with an agency to try and develop the process and use that process to go migrate their workload to the cloud. The presenters for this first session, first one was Stacen Rodriguez, who is a solution architect with AWS. He's based in Honolulu, but he's not able to join us today. He had a family emergency, so could not make it. The next person from AWS is Rishab Doshi, who is a manager of solutions architecture. And he is got 3.5 years of experience with AWS, but 14 plus years in various technology leadership roles, driving solution architecture and solutions for various companies. And from DataHouse, we have Jeff Masumoto, who's the vice president of our delivery organization. He's been at DataHouse for 21 years?
20 plus years.
20 plus, okay, all right. We're not gonna go too detailed, okay. But he's as part of the consulting delivery arm, he's been responsible for client relationships as well as solution delivery at various clients. Right now, he is leading up our DevSecOps program to try and change the way that we deliver and speed up and make us more agile in that delivery. So with that, I think Rishab is up now first.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hey everyone, aloha. And thank you, Eddie, for a great introduction. So welcome everyone, and thank you for taking the time to be with us today. As Eddie said, my name is Rishab Doshi. I'm a solution architect manager and have a lot of experience working with public sector partners, especially with migration consulting partners that have gained an experience migrating their customers over to cloud. So in terms of this session today, I wanted to walk you through application cloud migration and walk you through some of the learnings that we have gained and that we can have you think about and eventually embrace. So let's talk about the evolution and modernization of the application portfolio. Today, companies are evolving at a much faster pace, and the customer and the taxpayer's experience is of utmost importance to these organizations and government institutions. And on top of that, we have billions of smart devices that is demanding for new interactions, and millions of software developers that are constantly innovating on behalf of their customers. And in addition to that, AWS is also introducing disruptive cloud technology that are changing the economics and also providing more opportunities to these companies to innovate at scale. And as a result, companies are developing new applications at a much faster rate than ever before. And those drivers are translating into corporations and governments in different ways. And a pattern of decisions being made and drivers being considered have emerged. So on the slide, as you see, on the top level, we have the CIO that is responsible for an application portfolio that basically implements a business process, or let's say a supply chain management. And the CIO is responsible for making some important decisions. This could be whether the application should be built in-house or they should be leveraging a SaaS provider. And as you migrate to cloud, the CISO on the right-hand side has to make some important decisions as well, because as the CIO is changing the way applications are being implemented, the CISO has to look at things how they were traditionally being done on premises in terms of security, and come up with new ways and new security tools that they will be implementing in the cloud. The VP of Big Data, he or she is starting to receive data streams like never before. And cloud is so much flexible and scalable that big data is one of the second drivers for implementing this change after developer productivity. On the right-hand side, we see the VP of Infrastructure and Ops, which has to go through substantial process and people skill changes. They have to adopt new tools and unlearn a few. And with this, they are under constant pressure of reducing cost of the infrastructure, but at the same time be more agile. So why use AWS to migrate your workloads? We have the most experience working with customers of all types. AWS and partner ecosystem, right? We have over 100,000 partners, both consulting and independent software vendors that we have together have a partnership that can help your customers. And we have developed, over this period of years, we have developed methodologies, we have built tools and services that not only simplify each step of the migration process, but will also help you accelerate this journey into the cloud. To give you a couple of examples, Coca-Cola migrated 600 workloads in just under 14 months. And with this, they were able to achieve year-over-year cost reductions. And they were able to cut their processing time from 36 hours to just 10 seconds. In another example, Washington Post, right? The faster deployment is key to innovation. Washington Post was able to release 50+ deployments in a single hour. And some of these milestones, some of these projects were achieved by working with AWS and some of the AWS partners. So what are the benefits that we have seen across thousands of migration? And this is based on IDC research and some of the AWS analysis. On an average, we have seen 31% infrastructure cost savings, because with the scalability and flexibility that cloud provides, you're not provisioning for your peak capacity. And as you're moving to cloud, we help you right-size your environment. We help you right-size your instances that's running. With this, you're able to achieve far more cost reductions. At the same time, we see 43% fewer security incidents per year. With the benefits of cloud, with just click of a few buttons, you're able to enable some security controls and services in place and put them in place. And with the modernization of tools, with adopting new DevOps practices, with going serverless, your teams are responsible for less and less overhead of IT operations. And that directly impacts your IT staff productivity. It gives them a significant boost with which they are able to deliver 3 times more features in any given year. So what have we learned so far that we can pass on to you to help you make better decisions in your migration and a cloud journey? And there are 3 of those that we've found out. So looking at data from over 1,200 migrations, what we have observed is there are 3 to 4 key patterns that you can embrace. And we see successful transformations exhibit these 3 key behaviors. So for rest of my presentation, I'll dive into 3 of these key pillars. First one is make a plan for your application portfolio. So as you start looking at your application portfolio, you have to prioritize applications that you want to migrate with first. To get into further details, so from analyzing data over 1,000+ migrations, we have identified clear patterns. Now, as customers start thinking about migration and modernization, we've seen they realize that the applications that they currently have, about 10% of it or 20% of it doesn't align with their future business outcomes. And that is because newer applications have already fulfilled those capabilities. Some of those applications are not used by their customers, and they typically retire 10 to 20% on an average of their portfolio. Some move to SaaS. So in the past 10 years or so, we've seen more than 1,000 SaaS vendors come up. And because of that, some of the on-premises or applications that you were running could be easily migrated to a SaaS vendor. Customers have adopted Salesforce as their CRM. They've adopted Workday. So these are some of the SaaS vendors that have come into play and much more that you can easily move your applications to. So if you have retired maybe 10 or 20% of your portfolio, move to SaaS 20% of the portfolio, what are you doing with the remaining 60%? So with that remaining 60%, you're moving some to AWS, and some you're transforming them on AWS. We see customers lift and shift. So basically, pick the application that you are running in your environment and move it directly into AWS. And some you are able to re-platform. We've seen customers re-platform from, let's say, Windows Server into Linux, or into Red Hat Linux, or Amazon Linux. Customers have also migrated their databases. They moved from Oracle or SQL Server databases to Postgres and the Aurora database, which is our proprietary database service, to save on licensing cost. So that makes it roughly about 50% of the portfolio that gets either lift and shift or re-platformed into AWS. And the remaining ones, customers modernize, which is extremely important. With the advancement in serverless technologies, containers, and microservices architecture, about 20 to 30% of the portfolio gets modernized. And what we have learned is, one of the key aspects of modernization is you need to identify some of the key applications that are going to be a differentiator for your business, and to start thinking about modernizing them first before you tackle your remaining application portfolio. So migrate and modernizing legacy applications. So what we want to do is we want to build a long-term plan with our customers to assess all the critical enterprise applications and help you come up with a strategy, because the strategy should not be to just migrate a workload to AWS or any cloud provider. But the strategy should be to eventually modernize them and to unlock the business value that it can provide with some of the latest advancement in cloud. So within AWS, we are constantly innovating, and we would like to think about, have you made the best possible use of some of the latest advancement like AI and machine learning? Have you thought about building data lakes that can help you drive important business decisions? Have you thought about data analytics, advanced data analytics and reporting dashboards that can help you accelerate your business journey even further? And migration and modernization are not disconnected things, and neither they are one-time events. So we want to partner with you to come up with a workload renovation strategy. And the renovation strategy, the strategy should span across people, processes, and technology. So over the period of many years, we have developed our own tools, services, and also come up with programs that can help you migrate and modernize some of these strategic workloads. To give a couple of examples, on AWS today, we run 2 times more Windows Server workload than any other cloud provider. With SAP workloads, we have more than 5,000 active customers running the SAP workloads, and some of the critical ones on AWS. With our exclusive partnership with VMware, we've been able to save hundreds of customers more than 40% in their infrastructure cost. And we do understand some of your IT staff may have more familiarity with VMware. So now you're able to run VMware workloads on AWS and leverage the existing skill set that they have. In terms of databases, we migrated more than 350,000 databases, including Oracle, to AWS. And in terms of modernization, so mainframe modernization is an important one. We've been able to modernize mainframe workloads and help customers save more than 70% in infrastructure costs as well. So now, thinking back, so we've discussed about the application portfolio. In certain cases, it's pretty large. For large enterprises, it could be somewhere around 1,000 applications. For a mid-market company, we typically see 300 to 400 applications. And for a small company, it ranges somewhere between 25 to 50 applications. So now, once you look at your application portfolio, start thinking about which are the applications you want to retire, which can move to SaaS. But the ones that you decide that you want to lift and shift or re-platform, start making a plan for it. Start creating a backlog of your migration plan. Once you decide that, the next step is to actually migrate them to AWS. Once you migrate them, start tracking the application performance to ensure that it's meeting your key requirements. And once you do that, start creating a backlog of all the applications that you want to migrate in migration waves. So that's just a view at a high level. But with all the experience that we have gained, we have come up with our own methodology, which has 3 simple steps. It's called, it's assess. The second step is mobilize. And third one is migrate and modernize. Now in the assess phase, what we do is rapid discovery to find out what's running in your environment. We try to build a business case for change. And one of the important aspects here is you need to get a buy-in from your senior leadership, whether it's a CTO or the CIO. It's extremely important to get their buy-in so that you're not hung up during the way in your migration and transformation. This will help you unlock some key business decisions and help you move faster. In the mobilize phase, it's about getting ready phase. So the important aspect here, the key is to start, learn, and repeat. So in this particular phase, what you're doing is you're developing more POCs. You are doing more migration planning because you have a huge application portfolio. You start looking at applications. You run tools that helps you discover applications that are running in your portfolio. It helps you identify network resources, some tools, processes that are running, which you will have to eventually migrate. And once you gain all this experience, you actually go ahead and migrate and then modernize. And this is, again, considering the application portfolio, you will do this in multiple waves. So you migrate and modernize at scale. At the same time, you eventually develop your operating model. And I'll talk a little bit more on that as well. So aligned to the different phases of migration, we have a rich tool set that helps you migrate and modernize. To talk about a few, in the assess phase, we have Migration Evaluator. It's an agentless tool which helps you discover on-premises instances that are over-provisioned, and it also suggests you an equivalent AWS instance. Migration Evaluator also helps you optimize license cost by providing you cost comparisons between bring your own license versus license included options that's available in the cloud. Moving on to the next phase, we have mobilize phase, and we have application discovery service, which collects server specifications, performance data, and details of running processes and network connections. And moving on to the next phase, which is migrate and modernize, we have application migration service. It basically helps you replicate your instances to AWS and finally cut over with minimal downtime. We've been talking about application migration all this long, but a key to any migration is data. And we provide you with ample tools to migrate your data, whether it's in your database or in your storage environment. We provide you with tools that will help you migrate that data into AWS as well. And Jeff is going to talk more about database migration service, which they have used at one of their customers. On the slide on the top, you see AWS tools, but also the critical aspect is we also have a lot of AWS ISV vendors, so independent software vendors that provide software tools that helps you with migration as well. Here's a brief history of AWS Marketplace service, which currently offers more than 7,000 software products for provisioning and simplifying your modernization. In AWS Marketplace, you can also look up consulting partners and their offers, as well as professional services that you will need for some of the third-party software vendors. Marketplace also integrates into AWS License Manager. So software entitlements that can be distributed across, software entitlements can be distributed easily across multiple AWS accounts. We've taken feedback from our customers, and maybe for some compliance reasons or latency-related concerns, or maybe just the sheer size of the application portfolio, customers do envision that maybe a small portion of their application portfolio will continue to run on premises. And AWS, we are trying to create a seamless experience across the edge, cloud, and on premises. So we are coming up with some standardized tools and infrastructure that helps you operate workloads in cloud as well as on premises and in the edge. For example, with VMware Cloud on AWS, you're able to do so. So you're leveraging AWS infrastructure, still leveraging VMware. With AWS Outpost, we basically ship you a rack that we use in our own data centers, which you can then configure in your on-premises environment, and you can manage a control plane from AWS Management Console. With data transfer, we offer Storage Gateway. It's a hybrid storage service that provides you with on-premises access to virtually unlimited cloud storage. So hot or frequently accessed data, you can access that more quickly in an on-premises environment. But at the same time, you're leveraging cloud to store the entire data set as well as back it up in the cloud. So that was our first learning. The second one is around building an operating model. So as you gradually move to cloud, you will end up with a combination of AWS tools and some of our partner tools. And eventually, you need to come up with an operating model, which our customers call it as a service management framework. So once workloads are migrated to AWS, you have 3 operating models to choose from. One is self-managed. So if you have a skilled IT force, you're able to leverage AWS management and governance services to manage your workloads yourself. The second option is using AWS Managed Service, where we basically come in and take care of your infrastructure, manage your applications, so that your team can spend time in reskilling or upskilling, and at the same time focus on things that are key differentiator to your business. And the third option is partner managed. So we have over 100 plus managed services partner, which can help you manage your environment, and they offer full end-to-end IT lifecycle management. So as customers modernize, we note that there are specific IT domains that may require substantial redesign and modernization. To start off, we have developer OS environments and patch management. So as you migrate, you might want to standardize the OS, the operating system that you use in your environment. As I mentioned earlier, customers have standardized their environments to, let's say, Windows Server or Red Hat Linux or Amazon Linux. And this is to minimize the change variable that you have to deal with. So your runbooks, your patch management scripts can be much more simplified. Security, identity, and networking are next. So this provides a great opportunity to basically use some of the cloud-native services across security, identity, and networking domains. And after that comes storage, backup, and database tools. So let's say in an on-premise environment, you were using a relational database. Maybe it's time to reevaluate that relational model still makes sense or not. Maybe you want to migrate to a different database service, like a NoSQL database, that can serve a better purpose. You're basically choosing the right tool for the job. Customers are also modernizing the way they are leveraging monitoring tools and observability tools and management tools. And all of this do require training and reskilling. So when you start thinking about creating an AWS account, look into Control Tower. And this is our service which helps you manage a multi-account environment or create landing zones. Control Tower provides the easiest way to set up a new, secure, and governed environment. And you may ask, why do you need multiple accounts within AWS? So customers have different lines of businesses. There are multiple different teams, dispersed teams, and multiple workloads. And you may also want to segregate your workloads across, let's say, dev environment, test environment, production environment. And there could be some compliance reasons as well, because of which you may need multiple AWS accounts to work. So automation is the key here. By using Control Tower, you can provision a new AWS account with just a couple of clicks. But at the same time, you can be assured that the new accounts that are being provisioned are secure and are compliant as per your company-wide policies. So you can configure all of that and leverage Control Tower. So over the last 12 years, we've built 21 plus services in our AWS management and governance service portfolio. And we are constantly innovating. Just last year, we've released more than 3,000 AWS services and features just in 2021. And we've built tools to set up governed set of accounts and resources, just mentioned about Control Tower, and also AWS organizations. To provision infrastructure and code, you can leverage AWS CloudFormation or Service Catalog and Marketplace. And to monitor and observe your workloads, you can use AWS CloudWatch and CloudTrail. To centralize your IT operations, you can leverage Systems Manager. And to visualize how much you're spending on cloud, you can leverage AWS Cost Explorer and cost and usage reports. So across these different verticals, we have provided tools that can help you make this transition easier. At the same time, obviously, there are a lot of third-party tools that you should consider that fits into your IT ecosystem. Moving on, the last learning is don't do it alone. We are here to help. And from data analysis, what it shows that customers that use one of our 240 migration competency partners or AWS professional services, customers are 16% more successful and also have 25% faster time to completion of their migration modernization projects. So why use a partner or why involve them? So partners help you achieve the business outcome faster. In the morning in the keynote, we heard that skill gap is the biggest obstacle for innovating. And partners bring in that experience. Traditionally, IT teams have done a great job of keeping the lights on, but at the same time, that takes them away from reskilling and upskilling themselves. So partner helps you bridge that gap. Partners also bring in, let's say, development frameworks, security and control policies, and tools that can help you get started much faster in your journey. And while you're leveraging the partner, obviously, think about skill, how do you train your existing workforce so that eventually you can manage your environment in the cloud as well. So I'm really proud to announce we have over 240 migration competency partners. So not everyone makes it up to this list. These partners have significant migration experience. They have gone through a certification process with AWS, and that is how they become a migration competency partner. And these partners, some of these partners have experience in specialized workloads. So for example, SAP, some partners specialize in SAP migration. And in the last year, we have almost doubled the amount of migration competency partners we have, from 130 to 240 this year. I want to just take a minute to talk about AWS Migration Acceleration Program. So Migration Acceleration Program is one of our most comprehensive and proven cloud migration program. It provides tools that reduces cost, helps you with automation, and accelerate your execution. It provides tailored training content and approaches that can help your IT staff. And also, you're able to leverage our experience from AWS ProServe and also thousands of consulting partners that you can, and migration competency partners. And also, AWS Migration Acceleration Program is aligned to the 3 phases of migration that we just discussed about. So again, I'll repeat it: assess, mobilize, migrate, and modernize. And one of the key aspects of this program is AWS investments. So AWS investments can help you offset some of the initial costs of migration by providing you with AWS service credits and partner investment. So whether you're looking for some labor-related cost, training, or running parallel environments. So for a period of time, you'll be running your workload in the cloud as well as on-premises as you go through that whole cutover, the transition process. So AWS investments can help you there. At the same time, I mentioned about POCs. So we have AWS funding programs that can also help you with POCs, proof of concepts. Now, if you also want to work with AWS, we ourselves bring skills enablement to the table. We have a pretty well-defined training and certification programs. We have online classes, we have in-person classes, and certification paths for you and your teams to gain new experience in cloud. We also provide specialized certification paths. So if you want to look interested in database specialty or security specialty, there are different certification trainings for that. We've discussed about most of these things like AWS managed services, professional services, or AWS partners, the ecosystem that we provide. AWS IQ, so if you are looking for skilled AWS certified third-party experts on demand, or you're looking for task-based work, you can leverage AWS IQ. And AWS support, so finally we augment all of these support and services that we provide with AWS support. AWS Enterprise support being one of our premium offering. Industry leaders like Adobe, Capital One, Intuit, Netflix, Salesforce, Expedia, Pfizer, and many more governments have migrated and modernized on cloud. They have migrated some of the strategic workloads as well, and so can you. So at this point, I'd like to just touch upon two customer success stories in terms of migration. So first one is US Navy. US Navy and SAP National Security Services, which is called SAP NS2, migrated their largest SAP ERP implementation, Enterprise Resource Planning implementation, to AWS. This involved 72,000 users that was spread across 6 US Navy commands. The on-premises system that Navy was using was historically being disconnected and dispersed, making it extremely challenging for them to collect, process, and analyze mission-critical information. US Navy and SAP too, they were able to migrate this workload 10 months ahead of schedule in about just 10 months, so half the time. And with this implementation was responsible for movement and documentation of some $70 billion worth of parts and goods for US Navy. They were able to definitely cut cost, but at the same time, their reporting time reduced from 5 hours to just 0.5 hours. And this was part of their larger migration, 100 million migration or 100 million effort to upgrade Navy computing systems. The second example is, this is a customer reference from during the COVID times. So government is also transforming during COVID-19 economy, and it is also forcing the whole of the society to embrace virtual platforms. So New Jersey court system, back in 2019, they had migrated 40 of their key applications to AWS. The court system currently processes about 7 million cases per year. So in 2019, they migrated 40 applications. This included virtual courtroom for criminal justice hearing as well. But at that time, before COVID, they were only seeing 20 to 30% or 20 to 30 cases per week. With shelter-in-place orders that went into effect in March 2020, just in 2 months, New Jersey court system had facilitated more than 26,000 virtual court hearings with 217,000 participants. And with this, 99% of their workforce was all working remotely. So they were capitalized on the benefits of cloud when the time was extremely critical for everyone. So to close my part of the presentation, we have 3 guidelines for you to walk away with to successfully transform, migrate, and govern your application portfolio. And this insight is coming from more than 1,200 migrations and learnings from those across the globe. So first one is be selective on which applications you want to transform, because they do take time and people. So pick the right ones. Pick the applications that's going to be true differentiators to your business. And plan and modernize them, and at least plan to retire maybe around 10% of your application portfolio. Second one is build tools and processes for your new cloud operating model. As I said, there is a shift from tools that you've been using in an on-premises environment and moving on to cloud. So take time to define your operating model to come up with a service management framework that works with your organization or for your organization. And last is choose a trusted and certified migration partner. of whom we have more than 240, or a consulting partner with the right experience. So with that, I'll hand it over to Jeff to talk more about one of their customer migration journey. Thank you.
Sorry. I'm going to just point stuff over your notes here. Okay. Hi, everybody. Great job, Rishab. So my name is Jeff Masumoto. As Ed said, I've been at DataHouse for about 20 years. It's nice to see some familiar faces out there. I've done a lot of work with a lot of the state agencies. And so the customer story I'm going to here to share today is the application migration journey for CSCA. CSCA, if you don't know, is the Child Support Enforcement Agency. They're a division within the Attorney General's office, and their primary mission is to support child support payments. So we embarked on this application journey with them about 7 months ago. We started, so what you're seeing here is actually the state strategic IT plan overview published, I think, in 2019. And so a lot of the elements that you see up there today were actually being addressed at our conference today. So all this is to say is that by taking on an application migration journey into the cloud, you'll actually be delivering on the state's IT plan. So you'll be perfectly aligned with what the state's direction is. And so we've been working with CSA in the planning and execution of that migration and addressing each of these strategic priorities. And a lot of the credit for the strategic alignment goes to CSCA's entire staff, which a couple are here today. They'll keep me honest. Stephen and Curtis are here if you can ask them some questions later. And especially their leaders, Garrett Murayama and Norman Yoshikami. Unfortunately, Norman is no longer with us, but his strategy and his vision still guides CSCA and our DataHouse teams on the application migration journey. Is that the right one? Oh, sorry. There we go. So the CSA vision, as I said, aligns with the priorities of the state plan. And a big part of their mission, as you can see, is customer service. So the mission statement reads, to promote the well-being of children and the self-sufficiency of families through the timely and accurate delivery of child support services while providing excellent customer care. So based on that mission and a lot of discussions with the agency, we really realized that CSCA is truly a customer service organization. And as you've heard a lot of our keynotes today, that customer service is a key part of providing government. Good government is good customer service. So for our CSCA's IT department to support that mission and to align with the strategic plan, we've focused on 4 high-level goals. So number 1, improve customer service. By providing a better customer experience for the custodial and non-custodial parents, the more families can be self-sufficient in managing their child support payments. So that's all about really reducing the friction in working with the agency, reducing the friction in parents getting to their data, payments, so forth. Number 2, maintain the highest levels of IT security. So as you can imagine, with child support payments, security is of financial information very important. So CSCA has to deal with federal tax information, federal parent locator services, and so security is critical. Compliance with federal regulations, including IRS 1075 and annual audits with the feds, is a regular part of CSCA's business. Number 3, improve performance measures with decision-making tools. As we help CSCA re-platform their analytics tools, I came to understand the enforcement function of the CSCA and the business intelligence they need to do that enforcement. As they build out their analytics capabilities, it'll be really interesting to see how AI and ML can improve upon that. Right now, they actually have a pretty strong business intelligence program in investigating payments and looking across how patterns across different islands and so forth. But as they move to the cloud and moving up to the tools that AWS provides with AI and ML, there'll be a lot of opportunities open up for that. And finally, number 4, evergreen IT practices. So this very forward-looking goal is taken directly from the state IT plan and is the guiding principle that drove the decision to take the step beyond lift and shift and build actually re-platform on the cloud for all of their future applications. So this is the CSCA legacy environment. And it's not just a legacy environment, it's actually their current environment. So as I mentioned, we're about 7 months into this journey with them. We're in phase 2 of a multi-phase approach. And so what you see now is their mainframe. As many other state agencies, they're on the mainframe. It's running in Ohio. And they have set up a nightly batch system that brings down data off the mainframe onto a SQL server in their on-premise where they have SQL Server 2019, I believe. And in addition to that, they have some files that are coming down, and they have another SQL Server-based decision support system, this SAP's Business Objects. And so this nightly data is actually kind of the first step towards application migration to the cloud. It was actually really great to actually walk into the situation where they already had stuff coming off mainframe into a relational format that was much easier to replicate with. And then the other elements within their current environment are a API that's actually hosted on AWS already that interfaces with their IVR system, and another separate system which you can think of as a SaaS solution hosted by HIC, which is the csca.ehawaii.gov website. So as you can imagine, the kind of challenges to modernization that this legacy environment presents to us. As we all know, the challenges dealing with and the friction getting to data on the mainframe, and then also for the analytics, even though the analytics data has already come down into a relational format on premise, there's still a lot of challenges in maintaining those systems. There's some cost challenges, some self-sufficiency challenges that they face. So these were some of the key elements we wanted to address in our first phase of this project. So to take on these challenges, we developed a proof of concept strategy. So as Rishab mentioned, really taking the proof of concept strategy to another level is the best risk mitigation strategy you can find. And that's why the programs with AWS, they will actually provide some funding to do this, especially if you're looking to produce workloads that are not in production yet. But if you're bringing in new tools, AWS has a program where they actually provide some funding for you to test out those tools. So I really encourage you to follow up with them on that. So this proof of concept strategy was designed to verify that AWS, being on AWS, can satisfy all of CSCA's requirements and needs for the future platform. As I mentioned, this is the key piece to the risk mitigation strategy. I can't emphasize enough, do not wait until you build an application and get to user acceptance testing or ready to deploy to find out that you didn't satisfy a key security requirement or that your application can't handle the workload. Do all of the hard stuff first. That is the key and the guiding principle to this proof of concept strategy. You want to test that you have the security, scalability, and durability in your infrastructure, so start right away. And this really applies to a shift left philosophy, where you can do all your verification before you commit to all the time and money into building your app. Right? Fix all the hard stuff first, get rid of the boulders, and then the small stuff gets a lot easier. So the other elements that we wanted to address, besides testing the infrastructure, was data replication. We wanted to make sure that A, it was feasible, and I'll get to a lot more detail about that it was affordable, and that it provided the performance they needed to run all the applications. The other two proof of concepts we wanted to prove out were on the agency portals. We actually built 2 portals for them. One is a customer-facing portal, another one is the agency portal working off the same data. And so we had to prove that A, it had the security needed, again, for all the security requirements, that these portals can support the complex workflows that they had. So in building these portals, we actually were challenged with the most difficult workflow that they could find, and we proved that we could build that. And then finally, we also want to prove that we could build an awesome user experience. And so in doing that, we worked, or I should say the IT folks did a great job of working with their business users to make sure that it was a user experience that was not only enjoyable for the customers, meaning the parents, but also for the agency users themselves. and it wasn't just a feel-good experience, but it was an experience that people felt secure in. So providing, because people want to trust that their financial information is safe with the CSCA, so providing email verification, phone verification, multi-factor authentication, and building a lot of trust with the users that way. And the final proof of concept we worked on was an analytics area. So again, to make sure that the analytics solution could perform at scale. CSCA has quite a large amount of data, and then they also want to prove that they could be self-sufficient with it, which we did. Unfortunately, one of the CSCA developers isn't here today, but we actually proved that he was able to build some of their ports, which I'll show you later himself. So we partnered with them, helped them get to the data, and then CSCA staff was able to take over from there and actually build their reports themselves. And finally, we wanted to prove that we could provide an analytics solution that was affordable. As we all know, a lot of the big names reporting solutions out there can be quite expensive. So we proved that we could provide a enterprise level reporting and analytics experience with a tool called QuickSight, which is a much more affordable approach. So this journey started with a lot of planning. We iterated through numerous blueprints. I won't get into all of it, but as Rishab mentioned, planning is very important. I would quote the Eisenhower quote, going to battle, plans are kind of worthless, but planning is essential. So just go through that process, get your plans out there, iterate through the plans. You don't need to come up with a final blueprint, but it forces you to take everything into consideration. And out of that planning, like I said, we didn't come up with a final blueprint, but we did realize that what CSC has, about 30% of it will be lifted and shifted, and about 70% would be modernized. So this is a slightly different ratio than Rishab's been seeing with his other customers. CSC has taken a much more modernization approach where they're replatforming and refactoring their applications. And in fact, building new applications along the way. So this is not only an application migration story, it's also an application development story as we're building new apps for them. So to do these 4 proof of concepts, which are essentially like 3 different applications we built, we had to be basically taking advantage of a lot of the AWS services available. It starts off with a data layer, which is the foundation. And in there we have a couple instances of PostgreSQL RDS. One of them is the destination for the data that we're replicating off of Keiki, and the other instance is the database that's going to actually runs the portals. Included in that data layer are a lot of S3 buckets for processing files. There's also a DynamoDB instance. DynamoDB is a key value NoSQL data store. And what's really great about it is actually in this new service architecture, a lot of the processing can actually be offloaded from where you normally do like your application servers and things like that. You can actually do some logic and take advantage of features in DynamoDB. They have a feature called time to live, which you don't have to run a clock on your application layer anymore. That logic can actually be taken care of in DynamoDB. And you write lambdas to just monitor that. And then finally, there's a data migration service instance, which I'll get into a lot more detail later. The next level above that, we have your typical web front-end facing services, Route 53, WAF, CloudFront. So those are your typical web-facing services you'll need. And then at the compute integration layer, we use a lot of lambdas. There's a lot of lambdas that do what I call like the traffic cop kind of work within your environment of moving data between databases, a lot of triggers, a lot of services that AWS has like CloudWatch that actually depend on you writing lambdas to make those things work. And then we also have a level of lambdas that's actually in this private subnet that actually runs that provides the logic in the customer and agency portals that I'll talk about in a little bit. And then included in that layer, we have a lot of notifications. As I mentioned, we have email, and phone, text notifications that happen. And then finally, to pull it all together is DevOps. And the DevOps is really, really important because that is where we start enabling our customers. So we've been working closely with the CSCA staff, and one of the, maybe the highest priority for this engagement is their enablement. They're in the, as Rishab mentioned, the different models they have. There's a self-managed model, it may be a SaaS model. CSCA is definitely in the self-managed model. And so it's really important to work with them on that. They came to the table, or to start engagement with, actually had really great SQL skills from managing their SQL servers. And so we've actually put more effort into working with them on establishing a DevOps and building out the web apps. Okay, so this is kind of the foundation for the whole engagement that's getting things started, is this data replication. So as you saw in the legacy or their current environment, Keiki, the mainframe data is brought down every night, is replicated, logs come down into the CSCA staging database, which is on-premise. And then what we do is, or what we established was a data migration service instance, moving data from on-premise and doing ongoing real-time replication into what is now a Postgres RDS instance. And what this proved was, A, that we could do it, first of all, and also proved out the network security. So we're doing this over a site-to-site VPN. So the data is encrypted in transit, it's encrypted at rest, which were non-negotiable requirements for this engagement. And then we also proved out that we could convert the data from what's called into a heterogeneous fashion. So as you can tell, we're going from SQL Server to Postgres, and data migration services provides that ability to do that. Data migration services can also do, there's another tool that can, if you want to change your schema, we call it SCT, schema conversion tool, that's also available as well. We didn't actually do that because the schema coming down from Keiki is actually pretty straightforward since it's a mainframe system. But yeah, that was the key, because now that we have all the data onto this thing, we can actually build the application on a complete data set. This isn't one of those situations where you build on a small data set and you build the application, and then when you finish your application at the end and put the full data set in, everything breaks. We actually started building from ground up with a complete data set. I have 3 minutes? Oh, okay, I'll go a little faster. So, as I said, DMS can do all that. You can do heterogeneous, homogeneous conversions. DMS itself is an instance, so there are cost implications to that. It's basically what this slide is saying. You can size your DMS instance accordingly. There's actually quite an art to using DMS. The table structure at the CSCA, Keiki has about 400 tables, but one table has the majority of the records. I believe there's 3 billion rows in the database. And so you can design your DMS tasks accordingly. So, and some of it is actually trial and error. And you have to imagine that this is a service that's actually basically doing a SQL star against every table in your database. So you have to kind of be smart about how you do that. And so Andrew, our developer here, if you have any questions about this, he's our guy. But we had to design the tasks around the biggest tables, timing it. And so the initial load, actually, we took it down from 40 plus hours, I believe, something like that, down to 20 hours. And then once the initial load is done, then it has ongoing replication in real time. So it's only inserts, updates, and deletes after the upload. So those happen almost instantaneously. And there's also a validation process that DMS does to make sure all the data has been validated that you brought it over properly. And so the other proof of concept I mentioned was we're building portals for CSCA. Again, we went for the hardest thing we could. So we built had to deal with a workflow that has parents. As you can imagine, divorced parents may not want to talk to each other, but they need to also sign the same agreements. So there's a form, FMG 33, that both parents need to sign. And right now, what's happening, the way it works is parents download the forms, fill it out hard copy, things get mailed around, get sent to the agency for review. We put all this online, prove that people can, if it doesn't wait, that we'll send out emails, reminders, hey, you need to sign this form, and eventually gets sent over to CSA for approval. So yeah, we're able to prove that kind of challenging workflow can happen. And so this is the architecture we built to satisfy that. One thing I want to point out is that we did be able to bring a DataHouse framework to the table. We call it Lumicite. If you saw the Talofa Pass keynote at lunchtime, that's the same framework we used to build Talofa Pass. So it's essentially a lot of CloudFormation scripts that brings together our services that pre-engineered, and also brings in our web frameworks we based on React and Node. And finally, this is the analytics. So CSCA came in with a lot of challenging reports to build. Again, as you can imagine, with 3 billion transactions, that's a lot of data to analyze. But we brought it in, we created data sets that are then visualized through QuickSight. And as I said, CSCA themselves did a great job of building some of these reports. So the enablement piece of this is a critical part of what we do with them. And the analytics architecture is actually quite simple. Again, we're taking all the replicated data, and it was actually really satisfying to prove that we could create engaging visualizations that help the business customers. They also gave us the hardest report to build, and we were able to do that. Again, thanks to Andrew. So with that, I'll leave some time for questions. Or not.
Yeah, probably we don't have a lot of time for questions, but I'll encourage all of you to kind of stay back, and we can address any questions you have during the reception after 3:30. And I'll highly encourage you to take some time and submit the feedback for this session. It's extremely important for us. We'd love to look into the data. And in a couple of minutes, we'll hand it over to the next presenter.